Everyone ready? Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this meeting of the Planning Policy Committee. Can I draw everyone's attention to page 3 within the agenda, which sets out details regarding fire safety instructions and the webcasting arrangements. In the event of the fire alarm sounding, please leave the building by the nearest exit and make your way to the assembly point located in the Market car park adjacent to the Civic Suite building. Please do not return to the building unless given permission by council staff. For the benefit of those from home and those in the public gallery, members of the committee are seated in the front row and all non-members of the committee in attendance are seated in the rows behind. Item 1, apologies for absence. Apologies for absence have been received from Councillor James Newport and Councillor Richard Linden. We have substitute members. We have got Councillor Matt O'Leary for Councillor James Newport. Item 2, minutes of the meeting held on the 16th of March 2026. Are the minutes agreed, members? Thank you. Item number 3, declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest? I don't see anyone indicating, so item number 4, public questions on notice. Members, we have received 3 questions from members of the public which have been circulated to you separately. Question number 1 from Richard Pryor.
Hello. It echoes. Okay. Having read the agenda report pack for this evening's meeting, I can see that the completion dates for all 11 outstanding evidence-based reports are listed only seasonally as summer, while the Regulation 19 consultation date is listed as autumn. With 11 years spent developing the local plan and approximately 8 weeks remaining to complete it for the Regulation 19 consultation council approvals, the challenge to produce a high quality, evidence-based local plan on time is significant. So could you provide me the specific completion date for each of the 11 evidence studies, as well as the specific start date for the Regulation 19 consultation? Please provide the actual due date for each item rather than seasonal timeframes. Thank you.
Thank you for that. The Council has already completed a wide-ranging and extensive evidence base to support the local plan, which is available on its website. As set out within the local plan update report, there is a small number of evidence-based documents outstanding. These are a mix of updates to previous work due to changes to national policy and evidence which can only be completed at each stage of the plan process. As set out in the local plan update report, all those reports are due to complete in the next few weeks. Members will be kept updated on their completion through the member reference group if this item is approved later on the agenda. The exact timing of the Regulation 19 consultation and engagement events which will happen as part of it will be set out within the reports to this committee and council when councillors are asked to consider the local plan. Mr. Pryor, you have the opportunity to ask a supplementary question. You didn't give an answer to the first one to my question, but that's fine. The second question I have relates to the first question. The local plan has been dogged by delays for 11 years, including late evidence-based reports and on occasion poor quality consultant work. One report repeatedly referred to Birmingham, apparently confusing our Hockley with their one there. Last November, residents raised serious concerns that the traffic assessment, costing around £200,000, did not reflect the reality of our roads, and it has to be redone. Now, with 11 key evidence-based reports due in the coming weeks and less than 7 weeks to use them to prepare the Regulation 19 local plan, my concern there's not enough time to properly scrutinise these reports for accuracy, reasonableness and robustness. What happens if the traffic assessment is wrong again? What happens if the Greenbelt review concludes that more areas can be reclassified as grey belt than we reasonably expected? There is no time available to challenge expert evidence before it is used to write the final plan. So my question is there an up-to-date local plan risk register to capture all these project risks and mitigations? Can it be published this week, please? If one does not exist, can I suggest that one is produced and made available by the end of this week? Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Pryor. I'll invite Emma to answer some of the questions that you've put forward there as best she can, and if she wants me to help with anything, I will do.
Thank you. So the specific question was around the risk register. So yes, there is a detailed risk register for the local plan. We'd need to consider whether that was something that we were able to publish, so we'll have to take that away. But yes, there is a risk register.
With regard to some of the other matters that you raised, we are where we are in relation to the process, and this committee is looking to try to maximise the time that we do have, and one of the opportunities to do that is with an item which is on the agenda for this evening, which will involve as many of our councillors as possible. So I hope that answers some of your question.
Thank you very much. I wish you good luck.
We have question number 2. Sorry.
I've been messaged by members of the public they can't see the meeting properly. They're saying the screen is flashing.
Yes, we have a second question, please.
Hello, my name is Lorraine Baker. I have a question that I've put forward. It's what objective evidence demonstrates that healthcare capacity will exist at the point new residents move into the proposed developments rather than relying on future aspirations or unidentified funding?
Thank you. The infrastructure delivery plan examines the growth proposed in the local plan and how it can be matched with the right infrastructure. In doing this, the consultants speak to all the providers of those infrastructure, including those provided healthcare facilities, so that they can be involved in and agree the infrastructure to be provided to support the plan. They are consulted again on the final version of the plan to ensure that it has reflected their input. Ms. Baker, do you have a supplementary question?
The plan places welcome emphasis on healthy environments, but does not provide a convincing quantified assessment of whether the existing healthcare system can accommodate the planned level of growth. The health evidence quoted is generic and largely positive, but it's not the same as assessing GP list sizes and appointment access, dental provision and waiting time, community and mental health services, hospital urgent care pressures, and it doesn't translate these into specific local capacity. What I'd like to ask the committee is for the evidence that I can review and have a look at who has been consulted and whether that consultation goes into detail far enough or if there's any other requirement.
Thank you. Again, I'll ask Emma if she would like to add anything.
Thank you. So as you stated, the infrastructure delivery plan is a document that will lay all that out. They will get their information from the local integrated care board, NHS facilities. So they will do that assessment of their own system based on the information that we provide them, and then they will make recommendations to what should be included in the plan. For example, if they suggest that a new GP facility should be provided on a certain development, then we can then make that appropriate provision within the local plan. So the evidence that we gain on this is specifically from the provider of that service. So we have to consider that they have the best available data for their own service.
Thank you, Emma. I'll just add that you will have the opportunity to put your own evidence during the consultation process. So hopefully you'll still be engaged.
Do we get to see that so far, what's been developed?
Unfortunately, you've had your two questions. Thank you. We've got a third question. Would the lady like to come and Thank you.
Can you hear now? Thank you. In May, I invited councillors and officers, our local MPs and a myriad of local organisations and groups across the Rochford constituency to attend a local screening of the People's Emergency Briefing film on the threats to British life, from ongoing damage to nature and to our climate. Why? Because local authorities play a vital role in responding to these challenges. Councils are central to reducing emissions across housing, transport, planning and infrastructure, and to strengthening local resilience in the face of increasing flood risk, heat waves, food insecurity, and wider systemic pressures. And they also hold important responsibilities in relation to emergency planning, local resilience forums, and community risk assessment, making it especially important that elected members have access to the clearest possible scientific understanding of the risks ahead. However, 2 councillors registered and another 9 sent apologies. This is supposed to be an emergency, isn't it?
Thank you very much. I'll deal with the matters relating to what this committee is here for. So the local plan includes policies which would minimise the impact of new development on the environment, including ensuring new homes are more energy efficient and water efficient, and that cycling and walking are encouraged wherever possible.
Thank you.
Do you wish to put forward a supplementary question?
I do. I'm sorry that didn't quite answer my question. My second question, the next screening of the briefing is next Thursday, organised by the Castle Point Climate Action Group, with the support of Castle Point Borough Council. Bearing in mind, no councillors attended our screening in Trustlinks Rochford on 19th of June, what plans are there now to hold an in-house screening for councillors and staff?
Thank you. I don't know if Emma's got any comment to make.
So as many people will know, the climate sits under me as well. So from an officer perspective, we are working on all our services, making sure that we are taking into account the impacts of climate change. But there are no plans at present to internally screen that briefing to staff, but I'd have to hand back any councillor potential briefings over to the chair to answer, I think.
Thank you, Emma. Thank you for providing us with the other opportunity to go and view this. It's down to each individual councillor to decide if they wish to participate. But at least we do know there is another viewing available. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Marrett, was there a matter that you wanted to raise?
Yes, it was sort of related to what the public have asked for. I'm coming from a little different angle, because I think we could do with a list of completed studies that are relevant to the local plan. Because when you go on the RDC website, there is a very long list of various studies. Some of them are rather old. And what I was thinking, it would be useful for both councillors and interested members of the public to have an easily accessible list of what has been achieved and what is going to feed into the emerging local plan. And also, if that could be put onto our social media, just so that residents have got something at a glance guide to what's happening. Just something a little bit more user-friendly than a long list of studies, some of them going back 10 years or more, what we've got on our current website. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Merritt. Emma, is there anything you wish to add?
Thank you. Yes, as you say, there is a fully comprehensive list of those on our website. They are split into individual subject areas. So if you're interested in a particular subject, you can click on that and expand. So hopefully that gives you a sort of little extra sorting mechanism. And we'd certainly encourage residents and members to look at that list. I can certainly take it away to think about the comms on that and whether we can highlight that in some different ways to residents so that it's really clear. But I think on the consultation portal, I think there's also a list of some of the key documents as well. So that may be a shortened list, which again might be helpful, and we can perhaps talk to comms about how we can highlight that list, because that's probably your most important documents are already published there. So yeah, if you leave that one with me, we'll take it away. Thank you for the input.
Thank you. Thank you.
Right. We now move to item 5, member engagement in local plan process. The report begins on page 15, and I'll ask the Director of Place to introduce this item. Thank you.
Thank you. So as we've already spoken about, we have a tight timescale now to move forward with the local plan. So as part of that process, we want to make sure that there are opportunities for members to get involved in those discussions and information sharing outside of the formal planning policy committee. Just to be clear, nothing within this report is decision making. All of these are purely for information gathering. Decisions remain with the Planning Policy Committee and full council. So we're proposing sort of three types of briefings really. All member briefings. Members will be familiar with the format of these. We'll do them on Teams in the evening, available for all members. That could be officers, it could be specialist consultants coming to provide some more information on some of the evidence-based studies or the draft local plan, for example. We're then proposing a councillor reference group, and we're proposing that the makeup of that is made up of members of this committee, plus any political group leaders of the council who are not on committee and who wish to attend, and chaired by the chair of the Planning Policy Committee. So again, this is a group that will perhaps consider those draft evidence-based documents in a bit more detail, and have the opportunity for members to ask questions of officers and discuss the plan and its evidence base. Then finally, as we did in the previous, before the Reg 18 consultation, we're intending to hold some political group drop-in sessions, which again we had positive feedback from those last time, and an opportunity for individual political groups to ask questions of members of the team before the local plan is out for consultation. So there are some terms of reference for the councillor reference group set out in Appendix A of the report, and if approved, those groups would start immediately, and there will be dates going in the diaries tomorrow probably to make sure that members have got those dates in the diary. The third element of this is, as you will remember, for those of you who were on the committee last year, we discussed the liaison group between Rochford and Southend, which is dealing with and guiding the report that is being done on land north of Southend, south of Rochford. So we are proposing that the committee approve attendees. They aren't nominated in the report, so it's for you to nominate attendees either this evening or after the meeting. And so that's the recommendations. Happy to take any questions or anything else. Thank you.
Councillor Belton.
Thank you, Chairman. So in regards to the councillor reference group, firstly, I'm in support of all of this happening. I think it needs to happen given the time frame. It was supposed to have started in May, so we've got a lot of catching up to do. So my question will be, of officers, are we going to be able to fit all this in? How often are we going to be having to meet to catch up on the couple of months where understandably members have been finding their feet and being caught up on the last 12 months of work? But it was the membership that I've got a little bit of a concern about. And selfishly, I'm a group leader and a member of the planning policy. So I'd be on my lonesome, essentially. Edward, Councillor Williams, Councillor Linden, Councillor Newport is obviously dual-hatted as well. And I just wonder how that's going to work. Can we have substitutes? It's not proportionately split, if you look at it that way. I just worry about the dual-hatters because the invite is for this committee plus group leaders, but 4 of us on the committee are group leaders. And I just it doesn't seem like the invite's quite right. So I wonder if maybe the chairman would consider looking at how we could make that work and to ensure that we've got a good split across the district, because we know the important thing here is looking at the district as a whole, not in silos. So just making sure that everyone's comfortable that everywhere from Rawrath to Fowness is kind of represented. So that was my feedback. I think we need to do it, but will we be allowed substitutes? Is there any consideration where you've got a dual hatter? Could we nominate someone else from our group to be that extra person to provide the support so that it's not on one individual to provide all the information back and forwards, especially if we're meeting regularly? I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Emma, have you got any specific comments relating to that?
Yes, thank you. So just in terms of the timings, it's highly likely that there will be either a meeting of the member reference group and all member briefing or a planning policy committee probably every week for the next couple of months. So apologies, it is going to be quite a time-consuming process, but I think important to have that. In terms of the membership of the committee, I think as officers, as long as the meeting doesn't become too unwieldy, I think we're relatively comfortable with whatever membership that the committee thinks is appropriate. But as I say, I think for us, we don't really want 20 members or so there. We need to keep it as a group that can work positively and discuss. And again, what we propose in the terms of reference and in the report is that anyone who is on that group reports back to other members of their party, so that everybody is getting some feedback from that group.
Thank you, Councillor Belton.
Thank you. Thanks for that, and hopefully we can just discuss what that looks like accordingly. The only other point I wanted to ask about was the transparency of those meetings, because we put all meetings last year in the public domain because of the controversial nature of local plan and the sites. And I wonder, are there going to be notes taken? I appreciate the meeting might not be chosen to be in the public because it's sort of conversational rather than formal, but can notes be taken of those meetings, at least that we can then send those back to our group members so it's not all on interpretation and there's no misunderstanding or contention. So I don't know what the thoughts were around that. It's not clear if it's going to be a, not necessarily minuted, but certainly noted meeting. I think would be useful given how important it is.
I don't see any reason why that can't be done. Emma?
Thank you. Yeah, as you say, I don't think we wanted to formally minute the meetings, but certainly happy to share sort of a broad overview. I think our view was perhaps we could share those as part of the, as well as you being able to share them with your groups, we can perhaps share a summary of those as well as part of the chairman's report for these committees as well. And that was also the intention for the Land North or South End, South of Rochford notes as well, that they would be shared as part of that chair's report, so that even if you're not at committee or if you're a member of the public, you've still got some oversight of that.
Councillor O'Leary.
Thank you, Chair. I agree with Councillor Belton around the issue of the group leaders forming part of the reference group. It doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. And my simple solution should just be drawn from people from this committee. But that aside, I'm struggling slightly to support the first two recommendations. I think there's a transparency and accountability deficit here. Given that, I know we just talked about bringing in notes, which I do agree with. What I would suggest is that those notes should set out what dates the meeting take place, who's attended, the broad topics discussed, and how the member feedback actually has influenced how we're going to draft the Regulation 19. I appreciate there's some confidentiality here, but it would be good to get some broad strokes around this. I'm also not particularly happy with the idea of having to come cap in hand to officers as someone who's not a member of this committee, as I'm subbing tonight. I don't see why we have to I don't see why councillors who aren't a member of this committee have to ask for information around those meetings. I think that should just be blanket sent to all councillors, given how important this particular issue is. It's the number one issue in the district. So I don't support that approach. I think it's an unnecessary bureaucratic hurdle. So I would like that to not be part of this, please. Finally, with regard to recommendation 3, the precedent was set last year, I think, where it was the 2 members of the administration and an independent. So on that basis, it would make sense to me then that Councillor Hookway and Councillor Callaghan, as the 2 members of the administration who are part of this committee, should be on that liaison group with Southend. And I'd suggest, if Councillor Arthur Williams is up for it, that he should be on it as well, given he leads the Wakering group, independent group. Thank you.
Thank you to Councillor O'Leary. We'll take your proposal in due course. Emma, is there anything that Councillor O'Leary has brought forward that you want to comment on?
Thank you. So, in terms of the broad areas that you were thinking of the notes, yeah, that was the same as sort of we were thinking. If members of this committee are content that those notes are sent to all members rather than those who were just in attendance, then we're happy to do that. It's not part of the recommendation, so if I see nods around the chamber, then happy to do that as part of if the recommendation is approved and we set them up. So certainly we can do that.
Sorry, Emma, I missed the last bit that you said there. Sorry.
I think I said certainly we can do that.
Right, thank you. Councillor Reeves.
Thank you, Chair. A couple of things, please. I'm just concerned, as Councillor Belton has suggested, why it is that these particular meetings are going to be confidential. We're all very well aware of the public interest in this, and because of the chance of misinformation getting out, I would think that this actually shouldn't be confidential. I'm just wondering why it is that that has actually been put in on this particular group of it being confidential. The other thing is on the representation of members, especially on the Southend liaison group. I think knowing some of the stuff that's been going on there, I think to actually put people on there who don't know the history of what's actually happened there will give an advantage to Southend. And so I would suggest that it should be people who have got a knowledge of what actually went on last year that should be on that committee. Thank you.
Councillor Belton.
Thank you. Following on from that, I think Councillor Eaves makes a good point. I think it's absolutely right that the chairman of this committee should be on that panel if you're comfortable to. But I would certainly support someone like Councillor Eaves, who's got the history and won't be strong-armed by Southend given the opportunity to have any undue influence, given that it's such another controversial, influential site. So I know we're going to get to the point of political makeup, but I do believe that Councillor Eaves would be a valuable asset. I don't know if Councillor Callaghan or Williams even wanted to be on the panel, but certainly if there's an opportunity to, someone with some history on the matter would add value for our council to that debate, I'm sure. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to comment before we move on? I'll ask Emma to speak for that question. Thank you.
On the confidentiality point, so I think what we're suggesting is that the notes, broad notes of the meetings will be in the public domain, but the reason for the confidentiality there is that we believe that members may be more comfortable having open and honest discussions if they know that it's not going to go on social media the next day that someone says, well, so-and-so said this about this site or this about that site. So we definitely want to make sure that as we said earlier, that the broad notes of the meeting, what was discussed, the time, who was there, and some of the sort of key themes from it. But I think the confidentiality point is around an actual, say, recording or detailed information that might be circulated. And also it may only be draft. If we are looking at getting a consultant in to talk to you about the draft of a document, again, that could go to misinformation if that is taken as fact, when actually the point of the member reference group is to feed back on that to make improvements to it before it's published in the public domain. So that's the reason for it within here.
Thank you, Emma. I just want to just a little comment, and then I'll get you to come back. I think for the reasons that Emma has provided, I'm inclined to agree with that position. There's the opportunity to provide information to the public and to broader members of the council. I think there is a need for councillors to have discussions without the fear of, as Emma's quite put it, for something to be put out on Facebook the following morning. Anyway, Councillor Eaves.
Thank you. On that, I'm not really sure what Emma is suggesting now, because she's actually said that, if I heard you right, that we would be willing to put something out in the public domain, but confidentiality remains in Appendix A, which is what we're actually voting on. So I'm a little bit unclear as to how you're suggesting this. I get exactly what you're saying, Chair, but I'm also aware that we do not want to be accused of making decisions behind closed doors, as has been made against us in previous years.
Thank you, Councillor Eaves. I think it was made quite clear in the report that these were for engagement. Decision making is for this committee and for the council. So there won't be decisions made behind closed doors. Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Councillor Eaves. Emma wants to add something. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I just wondered, just in terms of that point in the terms of reference, I wonder therefore if within So it talks about that members of the group can share discussions with other members of their political groups. However, papers, presentations and discussions at the meeting are confidential and should not be shared more widely. And then it goes on to say any member of the council could request these papers, presentations or notes of the meeting, providing they also abide with the confidentiality of the papers. So maybe it should say the confidentiality of the discussion, because it's the discussion that is the particularly bit that I think we want to remain within the opportunity of the group. And some of the, as we said, some of the notes will then be going to the Planning Policy Committee, which I think it does say, again, within the terms of reference. But happy to amend the wording to better reflect the discussion.
Thank you, Emma. I think if that wording in the report is adjusted, we can take that as part of our vote later. Councillor Belton.
Thank you, Chairman. I think getting the wording right is going to be critical, because as someone who's individually been on the wrong end of a lot of the noise on social media, and the reason we wanted things to be so transparent last year to avoid some of the misinformation, I think it's really crucial that we understand what we can put out and what we can't put out. So if the notes, because that said it's just for members, but then in an earlier response it was said we could make that public as well. So I think we need to understand as members what can and can't be shared. I'm of the opinion that the notes should be able to be shared, but as you've said, it doesn't do the discussion. It talks about the topics, the time and who was present. I think that's a reasonable balance, so the public know who was discussing what in general, but not who said what. But we've got to be really clear, because we do know that some members of this council are quite comfortable just sending information on to residents, and we need to understand what we can and can't do so that we don't end up in hot water.
Thank you, Councillor Belton. Is that clear to you, Emma?
Yes, so I think there's probably a couple of tweaks in there to reflect the conversation, so that it's clear that there will be one single set of notes that is circulated to members, all members of the council after the meeting, and then it will be reported to the next available Planning Policy Committee. So there'll be a single set of notes for that. So I can reflect that wording within that organisation and information sharing section, just to be clear, rather than having a version of the notes that's only circulated with members and then shouldn't be shared, and then a separate version. I think we do one version, and then everybody's clear where it is, and we can do a little. We can have perhaps at the first meeting, if we need to, just a discussion about the meeting again, so that everybody's clear who's there, what we are and aren't sharing within the public domain. But just to reiterate, just as we're getting towards the end of the debate, these are discussion groups only. There will be no decision making at these groups.
Thank you, Emma. Councillor Reeves, did you want to come back?
On the matter of wording, can I suggest then that the third paragraph from the end be changed, instead of any member of the council may request papers, to all members of the council will receive papers, and that regular updates, the following update, regular updates will be taken to the planning policy, which will discuss the contents of those meetings. I think that would provide the confidentiality that you need, but also the transparency to the public of what we've been discussing.
I think that's appropriate, Emma. Okay. Yes. Thank you, Councillor Reeves. We'll get the wording adjusted to reflect that. Thank you. Councillor O'Leary put forward some names for the liaison group. Is that a formal motion, and do you have a seconder for that?
Yeah, I'll propose that.
Seconded by Councillor Capon. Right. Members, I will now move a motion that recommends on pages 15 and 16 to be approved. And can I have a second? Yes, just for clarity, the recommendation from Councillor O'Leary, we need to check that Councillor Callaghan and Councillor William are in agreement to accept those positions.
If I may, Chairman, I understand that Councillor Eaves has had a lot more experience last year on this, and I am happy to stand aside should that prove beneficial for the council.
Councillor Callaghan?
I'm happy with the recommendation.
Right. Councillor Williams, are you withdrawing yourself?
Yes, in favour of Councillor Eaves. Thank you.
Councillor O'Leary, do you wish to amend your motion?
Sure, I'm more than happy to support Councillor Eaves.
Councillor Eaves, are you happy to take the
Be
position?
part of this circus? Yes, why not?
Thank you on that basis. And Councillor Capon is happy to second that too. Councillor Williams, are you prepared to substitute just in case someone doesn't or can't attend?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Chairman.
Councillor O'Leary.
Okay, so have we sorted that out? Because I've got a question just before we go to the other recommendations.
I believe we've managed to get to the end. Yeah, thank you.
Yes, sorry. So before we go to the recommendations, I just wanted to clear up what we're doing around the reference group membership, because we haven't cleared that up. Because there was some confusion around, are we going to have group leaders or not, or how are we going to, as Councillor Belton brought up earlier. Thank you.
Amanda, is there anything else you can say to clear up that?
So I suppose a potential option would be that anyone who is already a group leader can also nominate another member of their party to attend the committee, to attend the reference group as well. That is an option. The reason why we put group leaders in there is because we're expecting that the members of this group report back to their wider groups, and therefore we felt it was appropriate that group leaders were on there. So if the committee wanted to, then the group leaders who are on committee could potentially nominate another member of their party to also attend with them.
Councillor Belton.
Thank you. Looking around, I know Councillor Linden's not here. I think every group is represented here, if I'm not mistaken. And given that we're now going to be getting all member notes, I think Councillor O'Leary's earlier point about sort of what's the relevance of the group leader. I get the relevance before because it was their responsibility to then feed back. But actually, if we're providing notes that feed back, it does ultimately probably make more sense that it just becomes the committee, because the notes are in the public domain and then it stops it getting messy. So I'd be happy be quite comfortable with that if that was the suggestion and other members were, rather than making the group unnecessarily big, because I'd be inviting someone along for the sake of it, essentially. So just I'd be comfortable, essentially.
Councillor Hoy.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll try not to speak, but sometimes I can't help myself. I agree with Councillor Belton and Councillor O'Leary. I think the group could come unreasonably large and unwieldy if you add another potentially six secretary members to it. And also the committee itself, when you're on the committee, your knowledge is quite deep and of the subject. And I think if you're coming in as a nominee from someone who isn't regularly on the committee, I think you'll have a very steep learning curve for each of those meetings. So I think it's probably best to keep to the committee members only.
Thank you, Councillor Hoy. We potentially limiting the number of participants. There's also, bearing in mind that this group is likely to meet regularly on a weekly basis, there's likely that substitutes will be needed to cover those people that are on the committee. So on that basis, it will naturally broaden itself out. But if the committee is minded to limit it just to those numbers, I'm happy to follow that. Thank you. Councillor Belton.
Thank you. I think it's a really good point about the frequency of these meetings, especially as we come into the summer period and people might have some commitments. So a way around that is exactly the same way as we do in committees, that we're permitted to send a substitute member from our group should one of us not be able to attend. So rather than pinning it on an individual, especially when it's a smaller group, it can be quite challenging. If we could ask that we make the reference group, the notes are in the all-member domain, but that we can send a substitute should we not be able to attend. If that might be a compromise that we could manage.
And are you happy to amend the matter to reflect this?
Yeah, very happy to add in that substitutes will be accepted. I suppose purely on a practical point, members will need to let us know, because these often are probably Teams meetings, so we'll need to get the invitations out to those councillors. But as long as whoever can't attend can let us know or send on the invitation, then yeah, that's fine.
Right, if members are happy, we'll be moving on to the recommendations. Obviously, we'll take into account the amendments to the reports. So, members will now move a motion that the recommendations on page 15 and 16 be approved. So can I have a seconder? Councillor Capon, thank you. We will now vote on the recommendations. Members are happy for me to take these en bloc or separate. Okay. So if we could have a vote by show of hands, those for. Thank you. That's unanimous. Thank you. Item 6. Rochford Local Plan Update, in brackets, July 2026. The report begins on page 25. Jonathan Quarter will introduce this item. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. This report provides members with an update on progress in preparing the Rochford Local Plan. In particular, it provides an overview of the information contained within Table 1, setting out the current status of the key technical evidence-based studies supporting the plan, an update on the Regulation 18 consultation undertaken earlier this year, and a summary of the ongoing work to prepare the proposed submission Regulation 19 local plan. The preparation of a local plan is a complex and iterative process that requires the careful consideration of consultation responses alongside a wide range of technical evidence covering matters such as transport, infrastructure, flood risk, viability, heritage, the natural environment and other strategic planning considerations. As reflected in Table 1, several studies are currently being finalised or updated to ensure the emerging plan is supported by a robust, proportionate and up-to-date evidence base. Since the close of the Regulation 18 consultation, officers have been progressing the review and analysis of representations received, whilst continuing to prepare the supporting evidence base and refine the emerging policy framework. These work streams are being undertaken in parallel to ensure that the key issues and matters raised through the consultation process can be considered alongside the latest available technical evidence, enabling policy development, site assessment and plan preparation work to be appropriately informed. This approach also supports the efficient use of council and consultant resources by allowing evidence gathering, analysis and policy drafting to progress concurrently within an integrated programme of work. The outcomes of this work will inform the next Regulation 19 local plan and the supporting documents that will accompany it. The Council remains committed to preparing a robust, evidence-led local plan that reflects local circumstances, responds to consultation feedback and meets relevant national planning requirements. Work continues to progress in accordance with the Council's adopted programme for plan preparation, and further updates will be provided to members through the appropriate governance processes of future meetings. This report is therefore intended to provide members with a factual update on progress to date and the next steps in ongoing preparation of the Rochford Local Plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Do members have any questions on this item? Councillor Hoy.
Thank you. Sorry, I'll get nearer. Thank you, Chairman. I just want to start by saying I welcome the progress that's been made since the last update in March to this committee. It's at least partially encouraging to see that consultants have now been appointed for the remaining evidence-based studies, and the work is now progressing across this range of important technical areas. However, having read the report carefully, I remain concerned about the programme and the amount of work still to be completed before Regulation 19. The report shows that virtually every major piece of technical evidence is due for completion during the summer. That includes the transport assessment, the second stage, infrastructure delivery plans, Greenbelt review, strategic flood risk assessment, water cycle study, viability assessment, heritage assessment, and a number of other key documents. These are not simply supporting papers, they are the evidence upon which the local plan will either stand or fail at examination. At the same time, officers are still processing the responses from Regulation 18 consultation or refining the spatial strategy, site allocations and planning policies. We're also told that a consultation feedback report will be coming to a future meeting, which I think is later this month, if I understand that correctly. The report states that Regulation 19 is scheduled for committee and council consideration by the end of the summer. I assume that's the 27th of August because there's no September or October meeting. Yet most of the remaining evidence is also due to be completed in the same period. That inevitably creates a very compressed timetable, which I've mentioned previously. I also note that the Council's own risk assessment, as it is, identifies the risk of failing to meet statutory deadlines, changes to national planning policy, the possibility of the plan being found non-compliant or unsound at examination, and the risk that insufficient evidence or inadequate infrastructure planning could undermine the plan's effectiveness and credibility. Those are significant risks, and I think it's right the committee fully understands those. I want to be clear that our objective should not simply be to submit a local plan by December. Our objective should be that Rochford submits a local plan that is evidence-led, legally robust, capable of withstanding independent examination, and that one that commands public confidence, our residents' confidence, that we have taken into account their views on this. With that in mind, I've got 3 questions, which are to the Chairman and or to officers, as the Chairman sees fit. Firstly, can you confirm that every evidence-based document listed in Table 1 of this report will have been completed, published and available to members before this committee is asked to consider Regulation 19 the local plan. Secondly, if any of the remaining evidence, particularly the Transport Assessment Infrastructure Delivery Plan or Greenbelt Review, identifies significant issues affecting the proposed spatial strategy or site allocations, is there sufficient flexibility within the current timetable to amend the plan before submission? Finally, the report identifies a number of risks to the programme, including delay, insufficient evidence and possibility of the plan being found unsound, as I've mentioned already. Of those risks, which one do you consider to be the single greatest threat to achieving submission before the government's December 2026 deadline, and what specific mitigations are in place if that happens?
Thank you, Councillor Hoy. I'll just state that your statement prior to your questions, the last piece, I think is, I don't know if there'd be anyone in this room who's not in agreement with that. But I will ask our officers to look to answer your 3 questions.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Hoy, for the questions. I think it's important, and as you've reflected, certainly the timetable is tight, and it's obviously important to remind ourselves that we're working within a very tight deadlines that have been set by government. We are one of many local authorities across the country, including our neighbours such as Southend, Basildon, Castle Point, that are trying to prepare a plan under the National Planning Policy Framework 2024, which is where that deadline comes from. Otherwise, if a plan needs to be prepared beyond that date, it's effectively an entirely different system. So obviously those decisions that we've made in the past around timetables have been in understanding of that, really, and obviously the imperative nature, as you've correctly stated, in ensuring that we've got an up-to-date plan, and I think that there's general, obviously, understanding of that. In terms of the preparation of evidence-based documents, I think it's fair to say it's not uncommon and obviously not ideal for the evidence to be prepared in such a short time frame, but clearly we need to make sure that any decisions that are put before members, that obviously that information is before you. And clearly in terms of the work that's been undertaken, as you've set out and identified from the report, a lot of those documents are due to be completed over the coming weeks. So certainly in terms of our intention to inform members of that and give them information, obviously referring back to the previous item, the reference groups will be really important in terms of facilitating that information sharing, so that you're informed before those decisions come before you, future committees and full council. So that's really, I think, in terms of where that position is. In terms of your second question around the key documents, yes, transport assessment, Greenbelt, infrastructure delivery plan, as many others obviously, but those in of themselves do pick up on a lot of the key matters that members of the public rightly will identify in terms of their concerns when it comes to trying to deal with the challenge of looking at future growth. So those in particular, I think, would be items that we would want to focus in on for future member reference groups, and to really sort of like give a better understanding of what those mean in practice. Obviously, they're very long, complicated documents, so we want to make sure, as we've done with previous committees, that, for example, a simple approach of having executive summaries, etc., but also we can provide simple information alongside that to help understand what that means in practice. In terms of the biggest risk of getting the plan prepared, as we set out in the report, there are clearly a number of risks that we have to always be aware of. I think it's fair to say that obviously the planning system never stays still, clearly by the fact that the system is changing all the time. But we are obviously keeping abreast of that. We're making sure that as officers that we're keeping up to date with any intended updates. Obviously, we've got the forthcoming update to the National Planning Policy Framework. Technically, that's not applicable to this plan, but equally, we want to make sure that if we can, that we're future-proofing that plan if there is anything coming forward. Obviously, as of today, that hasn't been published, but there is a draft that was consulted and this committee agreed a response to, so we have an understanding of what's possible from that. So certainly, and in terms of the mitigations, I think when it comes to things like resource, we have ensured as best we can that we are adding resources to the team. So we have got additional consultant resource within the team that provides sort of additional experience of preparing these documents and reviewing policies, etc. And obviously, with regards to the management of our consultants, we're maintaining obviously close conversations with them to ensure that those projects are on track, and if there are any other identified issues, that we're trying to deal with them as soon as we can. So hopefully that helps in terms of an answer. Thank you.
Emma, have you got anything to add?
No, I don't think so. Just only to say, in terms of the risk around the legal, having a document that is capable of being found sound by the independent inspector, obviously, as part of any future examination by an inspector, we expect to have a barrister and legal support, and we already have that on board, and we have regular meetings with them to make sure that we are covering off all those issues, making sure that we're clearly following all the processes, so that, that's how we're mitigating that risk around any legal challenges, etc.
Thank you, Emma. Just like to state that to members that I will be and have been seeking regular updates on how the progress is going with the various reports. So be aware that I will be on top of that. Thank you. Councillor Hoy.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just very briefly, can I just come back just for clarity that as these technical reports become available, they will be made available immediately to the, I can't remember the name of the group, the working group effectively of this committee, which will be meeting weekly. Is that the case, and will they be published on the website? It's not possible there's going to be a significant amount of reading for councillors to do, and I think it's important that we have these in a timely fashion. And also, I believe residents should have it in a timely fashion. I don't think they should be given these reports as part of a report 7 days, 5 days before the actual meeting for them to consider as well.
Emma, do you want to comment?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I mean, in terms of the, obviously with any evidence documents that are in a finalised state, or if there is a sort of an appropriate draft version, certainly we'd want to make sure that is made available as soon as possible. As you said, I think in terms of the member reference groups, clearly we want to make sure that we're giving members the opportunity to ask questions of that work before it is published. And ultimately, any failing that, obviously, any documents will ultimately be published in advance of any committees that they will be taken to. So there will obviously be various opportunities where that work will be made available in advance of any council decision. As we said, that there will be a need for the information to be taken in advance to any planning policy committee, which, as you said, obviously we've got a meeting at the end of August, which would be the one in advance of any council meeting.
Thank you. Just a little note for everyone. Make sure you're speaking directly into the mic. Some of the ones on the front row are not as good, so just make sure you are recorded. Councillor Belton.
Thank you, Chairman. So I just wanted to make a couple of points, and in regards to what Councillor Hoyd said, I think we need to actually go a little bit further. All member briefings, which are in the earlier report the recommendations that we just done, should have started in May. They haven't for understandable reasons. As these reports come out, we need briefings on them. It's not good enough just to send a report to 39 members when half of them will have never, ever seen one of those reports, and even us that have struggle with them. We had this with the transport assessment. We had a members briefing. It still wasn't enough. It went to committee. It got deferred. There's such huge pieces of work. Because of the time that we've got, there's not time for us not to understand. So it's my view that as those briefings, as those reports come forward, that's when those member briefings should take place. It's only fair that members have got a chance to ask questions. That's just feedback from last year when we started seeing these intense pieces of technical work coming forward, and it was a lot for us to understand. So I think that may be a consideration, as rather than just sending them out, we need a briefing in the diary. And for those members that can't be there, maybe a recording. That was how it was done last year, so that they could be shared. just feedback on last year and trying to overcome some of the problems and not making the same mistakes twice. So that was just a bit of feedback. In regards to the dates, it is concerning that they all say summer or anticipated summer, because it feels like we're in summer. I've spoken to council leaders cross-party all across the country over the last few weeks. There are so many of them in the exact same position that Rochford are in. And that is why it's been so hard to pin down consultants, because they're in high demand and they're able to name their price and put us in a waiting list somewhat. That's how it certainly felt, and that's what other councils are experiencing. It's great to hear that you're chasing and you're on top of it, because I think it's going to need that, because if summer slips, everything fails. So just to make sure that we are putting the pressure on the officers, to put the pressure on the consultants to make sure that they's come forward. But certainly as they do start to come forward, I support what Councillor Michael Hoy said about them being made available, but I'd really like to see some member briefings come forward as soon as possible for all of our sake. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we. Emma, is there anything you wish to add to that?
Yeah, no, positive feedback. Yeah, certainly that's our intention, particularly with the bigger documents, making sure that we've got member briefings in the diary. So yeah, as I say, the dates will be going in very shortly. We've got potential dates identified, so they'll be going out very shortly to members, so we can make sure that we've got those in and we can brief and get the consultants in to brief as well, because all but one of those documents is done by consultants, so you can have an opportunity to speak to some of the experts directly. But as John said as well, for your benefit and for the public benefit, they'll all have executive summaries. I know that was something the committee was very keen on last year, and also as part of the engagement events, we did a single page summary for the document. So for those of you who for those residents who may be coming to a committee and, what does an infrastructure delivery plan actually mean? We had sort of one pages so that people could see what that document did, and then they can choose either actually that's one I'm interested in, or that's, I want to find something else that's in another document. So we'll be doing all that as well to try and make sure that whilst they are very technical documents and there's a requirement for them to be very technical, we're making them as accessible as possible to both residents and to members of the public.
Thank you. Councillor O'Leary.
Thank you, Chair. I keep hearing the word risk, and a risk register has been mentioned a few times tonight. I think I'd be a bit more comfortable if there was a published risk register we could keep tabs on that was live. And following on from that, given the risks that have been highlighted, is it possible that we could end up in a situation where members will be asked to recommend a Regulation 19 consultation without a completed evidence base?
Emma, once again.
So as I said previously, there is a very detailed risk register, but I'll need to ask the monitoring officer if it's appropriate to share that publicly or to share that with members, because it is very detailed, and all of that risk register may not be suitable for the public domain. But I'll ask the monitoring officer that question and get back to the committee. We will be expecting you to make a decision on all the evidence that you have before you. So that is the decision will come to committee with the evidence base supporting it, and then it will be for you to make a decision as to whether you think that is an appropriate draft local plan based on that evidence base. So I think that's all I can probably add on that for the time being.
If I can come back, please.
Yes.
Yeah. So there wasn't. I understand what you're saying, but my question is specifically: is it possible that we're going to end up in a situation where all the evidence isn't available, and therefore we're going to be asked to approve a Reg 19 consultation without having all the evidence?
So as officers and professionals, we will only send a plan to committee when we believe it's capable of being sound by a planning inspector. So that means that we as officers will consider it will have all the necessary evidence to be a sound plan.
Right, I think, is there any more questions? Okay. Members, this report is to be noted only. So, are you happy with that? Thank you. Right, item 7, East Coast Recreational Disturbance Avoidance and Mitigation Strategy, in brackets Essex Coast RAMS, revised April 2026. The report begins on page 33. Jonathan Quilter will introduce this item.
Thank you, Chair. Members, this report concerns the Essex Coast Recreational Disturbance Avoidance and Mitigation Strategy, commonly known as Essex Coast RAMS. The purpose of this strategy is to protect internationally important coastal habitats and bird populations from the cumulative effects of recreational activity associated with housing growth. Evidence shows that additional residents can lead to more visits to the coast for activities such as walking and dog walking, which can, over time, disturb sensitive feeding, roosting and nesting bird populations. Essex Coast RAMS is not a new initiative. Rochford adopted the original strategy in 2020 alongside the other Essex partner authorities. Since then, developer contributions have funded measures such as coastal ranger services, visitor engagement, education, monitoring, access management and habitat protection projects. The report before members relates to a review of that existing strategy. The evidence base has been updated, future housing growth forecasts have been reviewed, and the mitigation package has been reassessed to ensure these internationally designated habitats continue to be protected over the longer term. This work has been undertaken with the involvement and support of Natural England as part of the coordinated Essex-wide approach. This is particularly relevant to Rochford because the district contains and adjoins a number of internationally important coastal habitats, including those associated with the Crouch and Roach estuaries. Unlike some inland authorities, the whole of the district falls within the zone of influence, meaning that qualifying residential development across Rochford contributes towards the mitigation package. One of the principal changes proposed is an increase in the RAMS tariff from approximately £176 per net new dwelling to £476 per net new dwelling. This reflects updated costs, a strengthened mitigation programme, additional monitoring requirements and a longer-term approach to habitat protection. It is important to note that adopting the revised RAMS should not be seen as facilitating additional housing growth, nor would a decision to not adopt, but it provides a means of resisting development. The Council's obligations under the habitat regulations would remain regardless. Without an agreed strategic mitigation framework, applicants would still need to demonstrate that impacts on protected habitats have been addressed, but this would likely require more complex site-specific assessments and mitigation proposals. This could lead to greater uncertainty, delays in determining applications, increased demands on council resources, and potentially higher costs associated with assessing and defending planning decisions. Members will also note the proposal to replace the existing supplementary planning document with a technical advice note. This reflects wider changes to the planning system, while leaving the mitigation requirements themselves unchanged. In summary, members are being asked to approve the revised Essex Coast RAMS, the updated tariff and the associated governance arrangements. The revised strategy has been developed through an Essex-wide partnership with Natural England support, ensuring that the Council can continue to meet its legal obligations to protect internationally important habitats while supporting the sustainable delivery of planned housing growth across Rochford. Thank you.
Do we have any questions? I don't see anyone indicating, so if that's the case, I will ask members, I'll move a motion that the recommendations on page 34 be approved. Can I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Capon. We will now vote on the recommendations. Are members happy for these to be taken on block or separate? Thank you. Right, on that basis, I'd like to see those in favour. That's unanimous. Thank you, members. Right, we now move on to item 8, work programme. The report begins on page 283. Any questions relating to this, please? Councillor Hoy.
Not necessarily about the work plan for the committee, but could you please try and publish a work plan for the working group, because I keep forgetting the name of it. Reference group. Member reference group. Can you please publish a diary for that, please? Because for members of the committee, it's going to be quite important we understand when these meetings will be, particularly if they're going to be weekly. And as soon as we can populate that with the work that's going to be happening in each of those meetings, that would be very useful as well.
Thank you, Councillor Hoy. Do we have a couple of the dates already arranged?
We have some potential holds in your diary, but not necessarily everyone's diary for the upcoming dates. But we can certainly, now that the committee has approved those, we'll circulate, as you say, both the dates and a sort of programme of what we expect to go to each of those meetings, so that members have got that, as you say, in a sort of work plan form, so you can see what's coming up.
Councillor Belton.
Thank you, Chairman. Just for my own understanding, the 27th of August meeting for the Reg 19, when it's going to come through as a draft, are we going to have to individually approve all of the core reports? Because obviously previously we've approved, well, not approved as it were, the transport assessment and so on. I just wonder if we are, that's a huge meeting, and is there going to need to be another meeting in July before we get there to get some of those pre-approved, or potentially, because I'm just going back to the previous meeting where we had some of these reports come forward and it was like hours of debate over one item. And if we've got all of those to come forward, or do they not need to be approved individually, and do they just form part of the... I just don't want to get to August and we can't move forward because something gets kicked back. I'm just trying to, again, learn from previous meetings.
Thank you. Emma?
Thank you. So we're hoping that by having the member reference groups that we can deal with any early questions, issues people have with any evidence-based documents, so we can provide the relevant information that a lot of those meetings have been discussion over, you know, sort of what does this mean, or those sorts of things. So we're hoping that the member reference groups will pick those up. At previous committees, we have noted rather than approved evidence-based documents, and we have done that individually, but due to time, I think our intention is on the 27th of August that you'll be approving the local plan and its evidence base, but that may include a noting of the full evidence base rather than discussing each of those documents individually.
Any further questions? Okay. Members, this report is for noting only, so is that noted? Thank you. That now concludes our business for this evening. Thank you all for your attendance.